Hi, everyone.
Greetings. This organization, Ray Franz has just said, is actually built by three monarchs, and I think we can all guess who they are. Why does he have to say that clearly in this chapter on the governing body? Because he wants to show that the governing body not only never existed before officially 1971-72, but that even after it officially existed, it's still not being governed by a governing body. The Watchtower Society is a society. It's a legal corporation. It's run by legally a board of directors, but in actuality, it's still run by a president, a king, a monarch.
He's demonstrating that they're rewriting their history.
He sure is, and this section particularly is.
Okay, so the subheading, Three Monarchs. He quotes from the New English Bible, Matthew 20, verses 25 and 26, which read, "You know that in the world rulers lord it over their subjects, and their great men make them feel the weight of authority. But it shall not be so with you." The history of Jehovah's Witnesses becomes one of record, particularly with the publication of the first issue of the Watchtower magazine on July 1st, 1879. The corporation called the Watchtower Bible Tract Society was formed in 1881 and incorporated in 1884. It is certainly true that back there the corporation did not shape, govern, control, or direct, to use the words of the vice president, talking about Franz, the governing body of those associated with the Watchtower. It did not, and in fact could not do so, for the simple reason that no governing body existed. Charles Taze Russell personally started the Watchtower as his own magazine and was its sole editor during his lifetime. All those associated with the Watchtower accepted him as their one and only pastor. It is true, of course, that the society, once formed, had a board of directors, Russell's wife, Maria, originally being one of these. But that board was not viewed as a governing body, nor did it serve as such. Yet the Watchtower of December 15, 1971, page 760 and 761, makes this statement, quote, "According to the facts available, the governing body became associated with the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania. C.T. Russell was patently of that governing body back there in the last quarter of the 19th century. So this is just fantasy here.
This is what we now call word salad, and just by the style of it, you'd have to assume Fred Franz again wrote this. When he uses phrases like "back there," this is characteristic of Fred Franz's delivery style when he does his public talk. So, according to the facts available, the governing body became associated with the Watchtower Bible Tract Society. What does that mean?
Nothing.
So it's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Ray Franz goes on, what do the facts available, and he's putting facts available in quotes here, what do the facts available actually show? Concerning the board of directors, Russell himself states in the Watchtower of January 1891, page 16, quote, "Having up to December 1, 1893, 3,705 voting shares out of a total of 6,383 voting shares, Sister Russell and myself, of course, elect the officers. Of course, elect the officers and thus control the society."
Wow, that's a blatant
Is that
statement.
clear?
Yeah.
And this was fully understood by the directors from the first. Their usefulness, it was understood, would come to the front in the event of our death. And that becomes interesting because at this point you don't yet know that Russell and his wife are going to separate when this is written, right? Then Ray Franz goes on that Russell clearly did not view the directors or any others as a governing body along with himself is obvious from the course he consistently followed. The Watchtower of March 1, 1923 page 68, says, often when asked by others, who is that faithful and wise servant, Brother Russell would reply, some say I am, while others say the society is. And Ray Franz says, the article then goes on to say, quote, both statements were true, for Brother Russell was in fact the society in the most absolute sense, in this that he directed the policy and course of the society without regard to any other persons on earth. He sometimes sought advice of others connected with the society, listened to their suggestions, and then did according to his own judgment, believing that the Lord would have him thus do. Now, there's a footnote to all of this about Maria. Mrs. Russell resigned as associate editor of the Watchtower in October 1886, so that's when the first volume of the Studies in the Scriptures is put out, due to disagreement with her husband. And on November 9, 1897, she separated from her husband, but she remained a director of the society until February 12, 1900. In 1906, she obtained a divorce. So obviously, it was two people on the governing body, if you want to call it that, back at the beginning, Russell and his wife, who controlled the majority of the voting shares.
In answer to a question from some Watchtower readers, C.T. Russell wrote in 1906, no, the truths I present as God's mouthpiece were not revealed in visions or dreams, nor by God's audible voice, nor all at once, but gradually, especially since 1870, and particularly since 1880. Neither is this clear unfolding of truth due to any human ingenuity or acuteness of perception, but to the simple fact that God's due time has come. And if I did not speak, and no other agent could be found, the very stones would cry out. That seems so deranged.
So out there.
Yeah. Believing himself to be God's mouthpiece and his agent for revelation of truth, it is understandable why he would see no need for a governing body. The year after this statement, Russell prepared a last will and testament, which was published in the December 1st, 1916 Watchtower magazine following his death in that year. Since nothing illustrates more clearly the total control Charles Russell exercised over the Watchtower magazine, the full text of this will is presented in the appendix. We may here note what is said in the second paragraph of this published will, which he quotes here. However, in view of the fact that in donating the journal, Zion's Watchtower, the Old Testament Quarterly, and the copyrights of the Millennial Dawn Scripture Study books, and various other booklets, hymn books, etc., to the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, I did so with the explicit understanding that I should have full control of all the interests of these publications during my lifetime, and that after my decease they should be conducted according to my wishes. I now herewith set forth the said wishes, my will representing the same as follows. My will respecting the same as follows.
And I think that publication he's bequeathing here is actually the Old Theology Quarterly, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they used to refer to their stuff as theology. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although he donated the Watchtower magazine to the corporation at its incorporation in 1884, he clearly considered it his magazine to be published according to his will even after his death. He directed that, upon his death, an editorial committee of 5 men personally selected and named by him should have entire editorial charge of the Watchtower magazine. And in the footnote they say that Rutherford's name, Ray Franz says, Rutherford's name is not among these 5. but it's in a second group of potential substitutes for the 5. He also willed that all his corporation voting shares should go to 5 women named by him as trustees, and provided that if any member of the editorial committee should be impeached, these women would serve along with the other corporation trustees, evidently the directors, and the remaining editorial committee members, in acting as a board of judgment to decide the case of the editorial committee member accused. Since one person cannot form a collective body, the facts show that even during C.T. Russell's lifetime, that is, up until 1916, there was not even a semblance of a governing body. That continued to be the case during the presidency of his successor, Joseph F. Rutherford. One might assume that the members of the editorial committee, along with the board of directors, would compose such a governing body, but the facts show that that assumption would be wrong. Now about Russell's kingship Rutherford, his successor's kingship next time. I'll put in a link to a video we did from Ray Franz, In Search of Christian Freedom, 38 in that playlist of over 360, I think it is, where the organization clearly falsifies its own history, that C.T. Russell was, in fact, the Watchtower Society. He was the Watchtower. He was also the faithful and discreet slave, the voice of Jehovah, the man with the writer's inkhorn, and the watchman of Ezekiel and Isaiah.
Yeah, the self-importance. You can't imagine yourself ever saying any of these things about yourself. And here one man is saying he's all these things.
And you still think he was used by God uniquely.
Yeah.
We'll also put in a link to the J.W. Roots playlist, where we go through a lot of stuff, but primarily the first 100 or so videos are from the published book, the book published before the founding of the Watchtower Society, that is Three Worlds, which is evidently written, if not entirely by Nelson Barber, primarily by Nelson Barber, but put out under the name of Barber and Russell. We assume that was because Russell financed it. We can't be sure at this late date. See you next time.
Yeah. Bye.